So I'm looking at the agenda for the commissioners today, and one of the things that they had scheduled was an executive session. We've talked a bit about this. Usually, I'm the only one from the media that's sitting in on executive session, and they refuse to admit that we're any kind of media. Of course, everybody knows we've got 191,000 plus views. We cover all of the county and city meetings in 2 counties. We have a daily show. What? This is no kind of media. You are actually watching nothing because it doesn't exist according to the county commissioners. In fact, there's one county commissioner's fan who insists that we don't even have a website according to her scholarly investigations.
Vapor TV. That's
Yes.
what we are.
So I went to the daily agenda, which has now gotten just a little bit better due to our new legal counsel, because it used to be they would list executive session where they get together and talk about secret items that about which you cannot be told, and it would just say general discussion. Well, we've been objecting to this for years, and now finally with Wally Hicks as the new county attorney, at least there are things listed there so you have a general idea of what they're talking about. Now, it may be that most of the things I'm going to tell you about, you go, I really don't care. There can be, from time to time, things like that you might care about what is the commissioner's stand going to be about the upcoming levy. This should not be an executive session, but we know because we have an inside source that should not talk, that they do talk about such things, and it is illegal for them to have these secret discussions about things that don't need to be kept secret.
Sounds logical.
The general rule is just because something is touchy or because it might be embarrassing to Keith Heck or somebody else doesn't mean that you get to have a secret conversation about it, although we know they do sometimes in the hallway, or they'll walk into each other's offices and have, we know this from our inside sources. You know, they don't have as many close friends as they think that they do. We have inside sources that call us. I don't call them. And they tell us about each individual commissioner behind their backs. Not very nice, but you wouldn't know anything about what they're actually doing if there wasn't somebody watching them, and now we've got more people watching them than ever.
Well, and so now we're going to have commissioners growing eyes in the back of their head because of this revelation here, and things might get a little tighter, maybe.
It'd be so much easier if they just tell the truth, just be above board. I mean, when Tony Correa, a long time ago, was a county commissioner, they wouldn't, not just Tony, all the commissioners wouldn't even get on an elevator together, because what do they have in common? County government. And they're not supposed to talk about that secretly. And there are people, oh, well, if there were 34 commissioners, why, they could come to conclusions together in groups of 10, and then we wouldn't need to worry. No, wait a minute. This law is specifically set up so that they can't do that kind of thing and come to these conclusions, and then you're at the weekly business session. Oh, we've all decided, you know, that's a gavel. You know, this thing has been decided.
Well, and that's been proposed here very recently by Mark Gatlin. Was proposing that we have, 5 commissioners so that they could have talks with 3 people.
I said to him, and I've said to others, this is my opinion, that it doesn't matter whether you have 30 or 33. It all depends on the personalities of the people. So far, they've said it doesn't matter, get this, it doesn't matter that it's against the law as long as no one's enforcing the law. Really? No. To me, the definition of integrity is that you do the right thing even if nobody's watching you.
Yes, right. What is to stop? I mean, you mentioned earlier that they probably poke their heads into one another's office all the time, and their offices are in fairly close proximity to one another. So what is it now that is stopping, or do you suspect that they probably do have meetings with one another to talk about some of the stuff that they're not supposed to be talking about?
We've been told that they do that, and the only thing that stops them from doing it all day, every day, is they can't stand each other, and no, they really, there's no love lost. I mean, it's bad enough between Keith Eck and Cheryl Walker versus Simon Hare, but Keith Eck and Cheryl Walker often don't get along. The main thing they have in common is their hatred for Simon Hare, and so, but that just makes Simon Hare look better. There are reasons not to approve of Simon Hare. We know what they are. They're at each other's throats on a fairly constant basis. This is the main thing, and then in each of them, I would like to believe there's a shred of decency or respect for the law, so they sometimes feel a little bit guilty about getting together, let's say at a Rotary Club meeting, and working out all the problems of county government behind our backs, and then say, well, our new solution for county government is we're going to put out 4 new junk ordinances. You're all going to support this, of course.
Yes.
We tried to tell them that we wouldn't. This is things that you wouldn't know about if we hadn't been there to say, this is what they're doing. Here's what the problem is. Sandy Casanelli, love her or like her, well, you know what I mean. She did a lot of investigation into the details of that and said, well, what about this, 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 and this? And we were there too. We brought out things, for example, that the people who would come out and investigate you, that the more things they found, the more of that money would go directly into their budget.
Yes, how convenient.
Boy, you know, there's an incentive to find something wrong.
Yes. Well, and it's no wonder that once exposed to sunlight, it failed by 80% of the vote.
Sunlight's interesting because I had said in an earlier meeting of county commissioners, this was when Dave Toller was there, I said, you would like to think you're a reflection of the community, but you're not, because you can tell by the votes. Don't just take my word for it, look at the votes. Plus, you know for sure that you can't see a reflection in a mirror. That was a little subtle joke there.
Yes. No,
so our job is to drag you out into the sunlight and then pull out the marshmallows when you explode in flames.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, a little celebration of transparency. Right.
Okay, so here's what was talked about at today's executive session according to the fairly nice list put together by Wally Hicks. Update on collective bargaining. Okay. Cable franchise. I think it's interesting. You guys think it's boring. Confidential memo from, I guess, from Wally Hicks regarding assignment of economic development funds. That's pretty interesting.
Well, and that may have some impact on tonight's weekly business session, perhaps?
There's a potential, but look, while I'm reading this list, remember, for years, I'm the only one that would go and sit in on executive session. I was allowed to do so for 6 months. No kick. And then suddenly, Simon Hare comes in, and the conclusion is, we're no longer media. We're no longer media. What are we doing where we're no longer media? We're bigger now than we ever were. You're watching this, and this is media. You may say, well, it's not news media. Well, yeah, whether you like Rush Limbaugh or not, that guy not only gives you news, but he also gives you opinion. Okay? And whether you like Bill Maher or not on HBO, he not only gives you news, he gives you opinion. Okay, and many people, especially younger people, are reporting that they get most of their news, their real news, not just
from
jokes,
the Daily Show. Yes.
From comedy shows. So I will submit to you that while Mike is not very funny, that this is akin to a comedy show. It's a really weak comedy.
We try to inject a little levity into what is otherwise a sad story.
But if you inject any more levity, then you're not going to have any headroom left, and we talked about this.
Yes.
Well, you don't mean levitation. Okay, yeah, you mean
no.
Got to pat that.
That was funny, folks. File that one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's about as funny as it's going to get. So, well, what do you want? This is free. So and we get criticized sometimes. You're always bringing up problems, and where are the solutions? Hey, We're doing this for free. You're paying $1 million a year to county officials for the solutions. You're
Yeah.
lucky enough that we mentioned the problems, and we're doing that
How's
for
that?
free.
How's that working out for
Yeah.
us?
Oh, we need
Yeah.
experts solving the problems. Oh, yes, what a great track record they have so far. But here's what I was trying to say. So I would sit in on an executive session. Now, sometimes I go at the very beginning just to watch them start it up, and they'll say, now, you must leave the room. Really? Okay. Still, we're not media of any kind. So we'll be talking with Wally Hicks about that this evening. But in addition to that, we never see anybody from anywhere else. The last time that I saw someone from media was the Daily Courier sent someone down to an executive session, and she promptly reported what they did, breaking her oath, on the front page of the Courier. Not even on page 9, front page. So we have never been guilty of revealing the secrets of executive session. But today, for the very first time in years, not only was Jim Moore of the Daily Courier there, he's actually maybe reporting news, but of course he can't report it. He can just sit there. And Jared Dill from the vast wastelands of Cajo, they never report what happens at these meetings. I mean, you could have several deaths in the room, and he would report some people were appointed to a commission today. Oh, really? To a committee. They never report the real news of $100,000 over budget. They're not going to report that. They never report that. We do. Cajo doesn't. So why were these two guys at this? Let me tell you what they were summoned. They didn't just wander in. Oh, well, I had nothing to do. So listen. Update on collective bargaining. All right, another one. Cable franchise, double,
Well,
boring. Well,
now
I think
not
it's
fast
interesting.
because collective bargaining has to do with what everybody in the county who's a union worker is getting paid. I think that has relevance.
Oh, no, but you're a news guy. Of course you think it's relative. They're not news guys. They just report what comes out in the official press release. Cajo's even worse.
Yeah.
They never look at they can't recognize. They wouldn't know news, real news, $100,000 over budget. That's news. They wouldn't know news if it was pasted to their bottom and they had both hands and a flashlight. So, what is going to pull these guys in unless they were summoned by somebody? Keith Heck, Cheryl Walker, Wally Hicks. You've got to come. You won't be able to report about this. You won't be able to report about this. We're the only ones that are doing this for altruistic reasons. They're paid. Two of them show up at once because of, you must be here for the update on collective bargaining. You can't report about it. You must be here for the cable franchise talk. What?
Well, now, if we're being conspiratorial minded here, one might suspect that you've been putting a lot of pressure on them to recognize you as media, and it is a little bit weird that none of the media sit in on these executive sessions, and maybe they think that if they get a couple of these guys in there for a little while and you see or find out about the fact that they have been in there, that you'll back off and say, okay, well, they're fulfilling their obligation to have media sitting in.
That's the logic.
Okay.
Come on, this is a comedy show after all. Okay, we're going to
I'm
back down.
grasping at straws. This
Yes,
is,
you are.
in many cases, I speculate because I try to come up with a possibility. Could be way out in left field. Quite frankly, probably am.
This is certainly a viable possibility. That's what the commissioners had in mind. Why, if we just get these two guys who never come, and we get them to show up once or twice, they got to rouse themselves up out of a comfortable chair and go all the way, 2 or 3 blocks to be there, well, maybe 6 blocks, to be there at a county commissioners meeting at this odd time where they can't report about anything, and they get to sit there and not ask any questions And this is going to fulfill their mission in life to report the no, they can't report the news, to hold government accountable. These guys never hold government accountable. They're part of the team. That's why they hate us and they love them. They're part of the get on board. This is who they're talking about, get on board. These guys are already on board. They're not media. They are the PR flacks for the county commissioners.
Stenographers.
Buddy, you know, I'm talking with one of the reporters there who used to be on the county commissioner's beat for the Daily Courier. I said, boy, there's a lot of people giving feedback today on this thing about, I think it was a levy, and gosh, that should make a good story. I don't report about what the people say. That people. I report about only what the officials say. I said, well, why are you here? I mean, you can get that from a phone call. Well, I do sometimes call them, and they tell me what the news is. Really? You're a journalist, and you rely on the government to call you and tell you what the news is.
Yes.
This is the Daily Courier.
Well,
The not so Daily Courier, because they're not daily anymore. They need to change their name. In transparency, for the sake of transparency.
Well,
Hold Tim Moore out into the sunlight, and we'll see. Yeah. Buddy.
So what else in terms of what was discussed there is relevant here in the executive session today?
Well, maybe they were both summoned. Maybe they were both supposed to be there for the confidential discussion about the Job Council. Confidential. What can there possibly be so secret about the Job Council? Well, how about risk management issues for county employees and officers?
Is that like how to stay out of a lawsuit 101?
I don't know. It doesn't mean that. It better mean that terrorists are going to be here next week. Because otherwise, why would these two guys who don't want to come to executive session, we do. No, okay. Why do we want to be in executive session? What the heck does that mean? This is their secret time to talk to each other. It's allowed by the state for that you can have a secret discussion with your county council, and things that only fall under certain categories can happen, and you can't just talk about embarrassing things. So, and since reporters are allowed by Oregon law to be there, what's a reporter going to do there if they can't report? Our job is supposed to be to make sure that they don't start talking about just things that are embarrassing, to remind them. And I'd say of all the times I was there, only twice did I see that they were wandering. I've been told from inside sources, very reliable, there at the table, that they often do talk about embarrassing things, like why aren't they recognizing us as media? Now, if you want to be very conspiratorial, they discussed that today, didn't put it on their list, but they wanted to be sure that the other two real media in town were there to report this. You know, I will put our record for finding news up against them, and I don't mean dog licks ice cream cone like they put on the front page of the Courier. I mean things like going over budget, misspending money, saying that this project out at the Ivy Airport is real when it's against federal law, making a special trip to talk with the FAA to get them to change federal law. These are real news stories that you will never... KJO doesn't, I mean, this doesn't, it's not even in their universe of possibilities, not on KJO, but even the Daily Courier, Jim Moore is sitting right there in the same meetings we are. He's not going to report about that.
Right. Yeah, I'm amazed to see him back there and having witnessed many of the things that we have, and then to never see a story in the Courier about that. What is he doing there? That's,
well, I don't mean tiny. Again, I don't mean tiny things. I don't mean, you know, Commissioner says the when he meant the, or I don't mean that kind of stuff. I mean real stories. The federal government's looking at closing down Table Rock. I'd say that was a story. I'm going to see that in the Courier. Commissioner has to agree that he lied to the public, and that he lied about what he said, and that he tried to use county facilities, county money, to get others to lie with him. That, to me, buddy, that's a story. It's not going to be a breath of that in the Courier, because you would then doubt. I mean, here we've got Keith Heck announcing to the world that he's the one to start off this whole thing with the new levy, and now they're saying we have nothing to do with the levy, and the Courier is not reporting any of that. Well, this is what you expect from Jim Moore and the Courier. When this thing happened with the family, with Simon Hare, who is bored with this now, but you know, the Courier reported that everything was fine and that the two sides had agreed and it all was forgiven. That was totally, absolutely, completely false. And we also came out, and when Channel 12 said that Simon Hare had, you know, there was something involved with him that was completely untrue, we reported the truth. And we got, well, why would you do that? You don't like Simon Hare. It doesn't matter whether I like him or not. It's the truth. And so we're going to report that. You're not going to find the truth in the Daily Courier. Come on. You're going to find the official version of events. And if you don't stick with that official version, then they're not even going to recognize you, not recognize the story. They won't even recognize you as any kind of media at all, because we're doing the one thing that they're not doing. We're reporting the news. And so those news reporters that fall into that category, they're not part of an honored tradition of people telling the truth. They've simply become a part of the world's oldest profession.
Yeah, that's right.